So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third training session of the eSmart projects. We are going to talk about strategies and tools for e-mobility implementation in public transport and logistics. We are quite at the end of the project, and now we are talking about the outputs of the project, the results. First, maybe a few standard rules about these webinars. Maybe we could get the second slide, please. Suspense. Yes. So you have to be aware that the meeting will be recorded. We are in European project, and we have to prove that we held this this meeting. So yes, and you may also close your webcam to increase your audio connection, the quality of your connection, and also please stay mute during the presentation so that we are able to understand what's going on. At the end, you'll be asked to activate your webcam for a global screenshot of the participants. And if you have questions, and you are invited to have questions, you may interact via the chat. So I leave the floor to Mrs. Cristina Cavicchioli, who is the project leader and who is going to give some words about the project, eSmart project. Cristina, it's your turn.
Thank you, Bruno, for this opportunity. My role today is to shortly introduce you eSmart project, that is an Interreg Alpine Space Program funded project that has the objective to develop strategic and operational instruments and tools for e-mobility implementation in the local public transport and in the last mile logistic, in particular in the Alpine space communities. Now, let me say a few words on the project concept. eSmart main objective is to increase public administration capability to plan infrastructure for electric last mile logistic and electric public transport in cooperation with the private sectors. So let's deep a bit the project concept and the product that we developed. In particular, here you can see, this is, I can't remove it, I don't believe. You can see two cycles. The red one, you can see the policy cycle, and the blue one, the bigger one, contains the project support to each step. So we start with the problem definition, and we support this part with the project fundamentals that are based on regional, national, and European directive. We also then for the second steps, that is the stakeholder engagement, we created we customized the Living Lab methodology, in particular for giving an answer to these specific issues. And we also support the policy engineering by means of the definition of a smart cities ecosystem. We also supported the choice of solution and the definition of policy option by means of eSmart roadmaps. And then we also supported the this cooperation among public and private sector by means of the project toolkit, a DSS, an ICT tool. And we give also a positive contribution, we believe, to policy validation by means of a letter of commitment signed by public administration, but also by private sectors. But let's go to the next step, that is the policy activation and review. We believe to support this phase by means of training action, the organization of workshops and webinars. And in particular today, we are working on, we are presenting some training action that belong to the training session of the project. We planned to deliver 5 training sessions. Here we are at the third one. All of these training action session of this training session are recorded and put on the project website in order to represent a tool for increasing the capability of planning. Today work is with the help of 4 presenters to shortly introduce you the training action that the partnership, the consortium, developed in order to support public administration capability. We just a quick look to the methodology we applied to build this training action. We first of all detect the needs of training from partners' territory, and we see that some issues are really needed. So we check which skills we have among the partnership, and we define who make what, and we build the training materials, and then we cluster the training actions in 4 main clusters. These are the main cluster: energy, technical issues as digitalization and energy charging system, policy and governance, and some training action also belong to the planning of e-mobility in urban and peri-urban area. So all the training action that will be presented today are on the project website, and my role today is finished. I give the floor to the 4 presenters that are here listed. Mrs. Alessia PAdalino, that present energy cluster, Mrs. Blanka Odlazek, that will present urban and peri-urban planning, Mrs. Zaiss, that will introduce the training action of policy and governance cluster, and Federica Savini, that will present training action on technical issues. You will be invited to kindly answer to some question during presentation, simple question that let us know what is your opinion on some feature, and after each of the presentation, you have the opportunity to make question, raising your hands. Thank you very much. And I give the floor to Bruno for the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So before starting with energy presentation, I think we have two questions to ask to the audience. So I ask the responsible of the question to launch the question, please. Suspense. Ah, Noémie. Could we have the questions? Go problem, maybe. Does it work? Okay. We have them. So you are invited to answer this question. In terms of energy, what do you think are the biggest challenges today? And you may choose several answers. The lack of renewable resources, lack of infrastructure, high costs, dependence on energy produced by other countries, slowness in the adoption of concrete actions by the institutions, or all of the previous answers. You have to click and submit.
I give you 10 more seconds to vote. Okay, then I'm going to close the poll and show the results. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see the results. So the winner is lack of infrastructure. And then we have slowness in the adoption of concrete actions by the institutions. The other ones are a bit lower, high costs, lack of renewable resources. We have all the previous answers, but that makes for all. And the last one is dependence on energy produced by other countries. So I think we have a second question.
I think we have it later.
Later, okay. So we'll go directly to the first presentation. We are going to talk about energy by Mrs. Alessia PAdalino. If you could share your screen, please, so that we can see your presentation and hear what you have to say. Okay.
Hello,
maybe
everyone.
you are not in presentation mode. Yes, that's
Should
it.
I be?
Okay, thank you
Right.
very much.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you also for sharing the question. It was very interesting to get your feedback on this energy topic, which is very important nowadays because every time that we open a newspaper and television, it's a really discussed topic. There is really not correct or not correct question about it, but it's always a matter of perspective. So today we will see, as Christina and Bruno mentioned, our let's say outputs on training materials for electrification of the local public transport and last mile logistic, and in particular in my presentation I will I will focus on the energy topic. So today we are facing the consequences of what I call here in this presentation a tsunami from Russia that does not seem to stop, and that's a huge problem. Italy, for example, has a gas as its primary source with a share of 42%, compared, for example, with other countries such as Germany, 26%, Spain, 23%, and France, 70%. What we can say here, for decades, human being has identified several other energy sources, as well as many renewable ones to rely on. The fact is that the countermeasure, that is the use of the renewable sources, are slow to the bureaucratic problems caused by this new energy crisis. And I think that many of you, of course, agree, as we saw in the previously answers. What we will see in this session is dedicated to the energy team in the context of the eSmart project, are the key points at the heart of the topic and eventually possible solution. In the past months, the eSmart project partners have worked to identify different, let's call them cases, that could define the state of research, the challenges, and also possible solution to best implement e-mobility. But first, we should analyze the context. So at international and European level, we find a package Fit for 55. It's a climate package adopted by the European Commission, and in very short and summarizing it, it can be conceptualized as a legislative proposal to achieve, first of all, the objectives of the Green Deal by 2030. Then the reduction of the greenhouse gas emission by 55% compared to the 1990 levels, and then reaching the carbon neutrality by 2015. Now, the question that, of course, arises is why should we all be interested in this transition? So the zero net emission goal will decrease GHG emission, will save energy, so we are talking also about cost, tackle energy poverty, improve quality of life, and generate jobs and social growth. The thing is that it's not that easy, of course, and the major challenge is now to overcome the fragmentation of knowledge and accelerate knowledge exchange between the already existing pilots and demonstration projects and research and development initiatives, with the goal to enable them to develop European-wide interoperable solution according to a common reference architecture. Something in this context is certain, and it's identified by smart grids, because they can play a really important role in addressing increasingly unattainable economic, environmental, and social trends in the supply and use of energy. For this, in this presentation, we will see different perspectives. So I will start from the first one. So the urban framework. Here we can find the public administration that aims today to achieve a positive energy district, also called PAD, integrating e-mobility solution for private passenger cars, local public transport, and last mile logistics. According to the Urban Europe program, the PAD, so the positive energy district, is seen as an urban neighborhood with annual net zero energy import and net zero CO2 emissions, working towards a surplus production of renewable energy integrated in an urban and regional energy system. Then this PAD, so the positive energy district, also according to our studies, it has it could become very, very efficient in the combination with the AV, allowing the public administration to achieve many benefits in terms of reduction of CO2 emission, reducing grid stress and implementation of renewable energy sources. Within eSmart, we identified and studied different case studies. One of them reported here. This is Porta Romana district, based in the northwest area of Milano. So we are talking about Italy, where this area will partially be the site, as maybe some of you already know, of the Olympic Village hosting the athletes of the Milano Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics. Here in this case study, what we have seen is that the EV load curve has been obtained by considering the possibility of charging 100 private EV in the residential area. So one EV per, so we are talking around 1 EV per 10 citizens in the district. And as we can see in the graphic, the case study, the results has been very efficient. In this context, there have been introduced in the, let's say, recent years, two new concepts. So one of them is the energy communities, is a term introduced by the European Directive 2018-2001. And the other one is the citizens energy communities. And you can see here the reference to. They have many aspects in common. I report here, let's say, the main one, where we can see that within energy communities, they share the energy with the members, but as a customers. On the other hand, citizens energy community share the electricity in the community. Based on this concept, again, the eSmart partners took some studies to verify which case could be effective or not effective, or a possible solution to adopt. And we learn different, let's say, elements. So first of all, we learned that aggregating different user producer, it's possible to reach higher self-consumption and self-sufficiency. Then an important phase of the work is to inform citizens through participatory operation campaigns. Then, to become operative, the energy communities should draft within 6 months from their creation an energy balance, and they must draft energy strategies within 12 months. The strategy defines the action required for the reduction of fossil energy consumption and increase of rest generation. Also, as we saw in the, let's say, in the beginning questions and then answer, one of the main identified problem today is also like the slowness of the public, the bureaucracy for the implementation of this action. So I would kindly ask in this slide to maybe Climate Alliance could share the second question, which will be, would you collaborate with your community in order to become self-sustainable and green? So just a second. Yes. So let's see if some of you would collaborate or not, or maybe doesn't, you don't have an opinion on that topic. So as remember, the two possible scenario are energy communities, so where members are customers, and the other one is citizen energy communities, so where electricity in the community is shared, not as a customer. This is a very important question, and then feedback, of course, to see the common opinion or the main opinion on this topic. So let's see if we can get the answers. Yes, that's great. This is the kind of feedback that we were really aiming. So thank you very much. And then we will see why just shortly. So we focus, as I mentioned before, in the urban framework, but so let me come back here in the presentation. Yes, but the majority of people, so the majority of people we are talking in the context of course, the European Union, they live in urban areas, but most of the European areas are rural. And this is also an important issue when it comes to energy and e-mobility in general. So here I reported another case study. We need to think, so all around Europe, there is Natura 2000 area. And here the case study is focused on the area in Slovenia. So we are talking about 355 protected areas in this framework in Slovenia. This area are covering the 37.46% of the surface of the entire country. And due to complicated procedures, considerable parts of the project cost are spent only to get permission to build. So what we, let's say, see was that the estimated actually is that the procedure may take up to 10 years. So this is a really important data also to consider, keeping in mind still the first question at the beginning of the presentation. Last but not least, there is also the transport and logistics sector. We must think that there are still many steps to take for longer range solution, but the optimal electric solution for the last mile, it can be implemented today and is actually feasible. But we are talking about mainly on urban framework. According to the EU Science Hub, EU road freight transport is projected to increase by 33% by 2030. So we're really talking about a few years, and by 55% by 2050. The European Alternative Fuel Observatory showed the following data that I reported here in the graphic for the countries covering the Alpine space region. So as you can see, we have Germany that really has a high number. France, which is not even at the half of the Germany action. Italy, a little bit. Austria, even smaller data, and Slovenia at the moment 0. That's why it's a very discussed and also tricky topic because in this case, when it comes to the transport and logistics sector, the development of the HDV is more expensive, slower, and requires higher capacity, charging infrastructure capacities, but they are already appearing in the European fleets. I mean, we have here the data of Germany, so it's not impossible. Regarding this issue, what we can say is that there are today several different concepts of electrification of EHDVs, especially in charging technologies. So we are talking about cables, electrified motorways, inductive charging, which all influence parameters of vehicles. Also, different location of charging influence the vehicles, like the size of the batteries, the range, the charging power, and so it's very, very, let's say, important to analyze and study all these elements. What we can say is that it's not known yet which concept is best and will prevail at the end. So the investment, I mean, from the logistic, transport and logistics sector point of view, is still not safe at the moment, but it's not impossible. So the question that, of course, comes in this slide is how to move forward. So how can we decide? So politicians, I mean, should base the decision of the user feedback. So which option is better? Who should decide? So the politicians who are not involved daily on this kind of activities, or the users? So what we believe is that definitely the answer is the users. Then, of course, we need the simplification in the procedures, in the permits, and also decrease associated to the cost. That it's really an important and discussed topic today. Then we have to adapt the regulation to be stimulative for the network owners to improve the system. What is needed also the coordination of the planning with actual state of distribution network and most effective possibility for development. And we need also to make also renewable energy source operators to take share in responsibility for power quality parameters in the network. So our conclusion is from an energetic perspective is that we need to work all together. And by we means public administration, politicians, both at national, international, local level, citizens, which must act really an important role, transport and logistic companies, of course, energy suppliers, and all related topic actors, of course. And only by working together, we will be able to build our green future, which of course is the only future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessia. It was very interesting. I remind everybody that this is a quick overview of training material on energy topics that are available or will shortly be available on the project's website. So today we are giving you an overview of more deep trainings that will be available to everybody. So I think we have finished with energy. So maybe we could leave the floor before leaving the floor to Mrs. Blanka Odlazek for urban immobility, for urban peri-urban planning. Sorry, I think we have one first question for the audience, if I'm right. Maybe the first question. I don't have the text.
Blanka, shall I start the questions now, or do you want to start with the presentation first? Blanka?
We are in a live presentation, so we have the problems linked to live presentations. Maybe we can start with the questions if we can't get an answer from Blanka.
I think that maybe the only question for the audience is now maybe for the evaluation of the presentation that just heard, but other.
We have some trouble hearing you, Blanka.
Sorry. Otherwise, we can start with the presentation. Whether we.
Okay. So Blanka, please go on. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I will try to share my screen. I hope you hear me well. I cannot, wait a minute. Can you give me permission for sharing the screen?
Still live presentation. We are going to solve the problem.
Think
no
you
trouble.
Should have
because
permission.
I don't have the permission before we tested actually, and I could share the screen, but now again something is going wrong. I cannot share the screen.
It's going to work. No problem. Everything is fine.
I don't know why I cannot share the screen, honestly. Have you, because here it says one participant can share at a time. So I guess I cannot because I still see
Okay,
other...
Blanka, if you want, I can share the screen and you just need to tell me when move in the next slide, if you prefer.
Yes, but you don't have the latest presentation of mine, do you?
What about skipping or postponing you, Blanka? And meanwhile,
Sure.
Okay.
Do you see my screen?
I think it works. Blanka Odlazek started screen sharing. I cannot see anything else, but
great.
Something is happening.
Okay, do you see the
presentation? It's not the right presentation, but we can see your screen.
You should see the presentation.
It's not the presentation, it's your own screen. Is smart session training materials confirmation. It's your Outlook page.
Do you see what do you see now?
Currently nothing. Sorry for the audience. It's always the trouble with live presentations.
Tricky. Okay. Try again. Now it should definitely work.
Yes.
Yes, live from Slovenia. Yes.
Okay, we solved the problem.
It's not we see your presentation. It's not the presentation. We see all the slides, but well, if it's only solution, let's go on with this.
Actually, you should only see one slide.
No, it's not. It's not the.
Really?
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Presentation mode.
Yes, I have. I exactly did that. I put on the slideshow mode. So.
Don't matter, and go on with the presentation.
Okay.
Now it's
try
okay.
like this.
Is it now okay?
No, but
no, still not.
Let's go with it. Otherwise, we'll have to skip lunch.
Exactly. So okay. As you already heard from Bruno, my name is Blanka Odlazek, and I'm working for Regional Development Agency of Gorinska in Slovenia. And I'm going to present to you today a summary of the content that has been contributed from several experts from 5 partner countries in the Alpine space, connected to urban and peri-urban e-mobility. So thank you to the authors. I will start first with the question which I posed to myself. Actually, have you ever asked yourself if your country in the European Union or the European Union can significantly contribute to the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions globally? Because I have for Slovenia, because according to the source Climate Trace, Slovenia contributes 0.01% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, you know, my question to me was, can we make a difference? So I searched different sources, and now I want you to show me whether, you know, you know what I found out. So now I ask Felix to show the questions. I have 2 questions for you in this regard.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes. So maybe Blanka, you could read the questions, or?
Actually, I can't see them.
Okay, so I can read the questions. First question: which sectors do you believe were the top 3 emitters in total tons of CO2 emissions globally in 2020? So you have to choose only one. And second question: which 3 countries do you think were the biggest CO2 emitters per capita globally in 2020? And also only one choice.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
I think we have the results.
Yes, 1 second. Can you see the results?
I can see the results. If I may comment, the first question, the right answer is actually power, manufacturing, and transport. So these were the first 3 largest emitters by sector in total count, so per tons, in 2020. And for second question, you know, the right answer is going to surprise you because it actually gotten almost the least answers. So I can stop sharing. So we can stop with the quiz, and I can go back to the presentation. So the answer to the second question are the 3 smaller countries that emit most greenhouse gas emissions, CO2 emissions, according to source Statista in 2020 per capita. So Qatar, New Caledonia, and Mongolia. And if we look at other countries, you know, like USA is on the 13th place, and for instance, Germany emits more per capita than Russia in 2020. And for the other 4 countries from our eSmart project, Slovenia is on the 54th place, so emits more per capita than Italy and France. So Italy and France are doing something better than us, and we should improve. And if we sum up, all the small countries, then the influence on greenhouse gas emissions, and with this also CO2 emissions, are actually significant, if not so much globally, then at least locally. The greenhouse gas emissions must begin falling by 7.6% each year, starting in 2020. We already knew in eSmart that the biggest emitters by sector are transport and power. And as you can see, the transport pops up in all eSmart countries as top 3 sector, emitting the most, and the second is power in all 4 except France, which has a lot of nuclear power plants, and therefore does not emit so much CO2 emissions in this sector. So in terms of mobility in transport, we already know that mobility is unsustainable because it relies on fossil fuels, which are, besides pollutant, also finite. And mobility is unsustainable because contributes to global warming and contributes to air pollution in urban areas as well as outside of them. So what to do? We can avoid with smart working from home, not travel so much, not commute so much, and we can use digital services. Then we can shift using bicycles or using public transport if we can. And we can also increase efficiency.
No, scusami, ma vi ho scritto se potete verificare il testo di Nicolino, non so se avete visto la mail.
Excuse me?
Guido should mute his microphone. Thank you.
Okay. So I will continue. So improve, and yeah, we can also reduce environmental impact with this. And electric vehicles, especially battery electric vehicles and hydrogen, give a possibility to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutant emissions. To determine how much they may reduce the pollution, we need to prepare a life cycle assessment. And this actually has been done by our lead partner, RSE, but you can also find this kind of analysis on the European level. So the results of their analysis showed that electric vehicles can significantly reduce emissions of greenhouse gas and pollutants globally. They can reduce the negative influence on climate change, air quality, and noise pollution locally. And this applies also to bus and freight road transport. And life cycle assessment is only one criteria, that it should be considered for choosing which is the best fuel for local public transport and also last mile logistic, which we are addressing in eSmart. Because life cycle assessment, it looks to the energy production, it looks how vehicle is produced, maintained, and used, and also the recycling. But there are also other criteria that are important. One of them being costs, the total costs of ownership. So the maintenance, the purchase, and the fuel, and so on. And the third one is, vehicles needs to be easy to use. So in terms of the second criteria, the total cost of ownership, this analysis has been also done by our lead partner, the RSE, but also supported by French experts who also did the analysis on their own, and it's actually supporting the results of this one. So the RSC did the analysis on total cost of ownership, comparing cases from flat and mountainous areas of Bolzano, Torino, Milano, and Bergamo for the local public transport for all the fuels that are used in this area. And they did analysis on the impact on the grid and defined the challenges. So the results of the analysis were that each of the fuels has its challenges, and the total cost of ownership gap between fossil fuel and electric vehicles should slowly reduce. They actually found out that they're already reducing, but it's expected that they will reduce even more. And new investments in the grid upgrades, metro lines, district renovations, slow fast charging are needed. And the French partner also found out that, if someone considers using gas, they should definitely consider or choose biogas. So the challenges defined are that electrification of the local public transport, and this applies also to last mile logistic, superimposes to other electrification processes in urban areas. And impacts on the electricity distribution grid depend on the recharging scheme, like depot opportunity charging, flash recharge, and coordination between LPT and also LML operators and the DSOs can be challenging. And the public authorities can support the dialogue between the two stakeholders. So this sounds very complicated, time-consuming and costly, but where there is a will, there is a way. And this has been globally proven in many cities and areas. And also, in our partners' countries, in eSmart. I will introduce you to two cases. One being from Austria. City of Klagenfurt partnered with public transport operator Klagenfurt Mobil and the electricity grid operator, and they decided to fully decarbonize their bus fleet. And after the adoption of the idea, they set up key strategic topics. So e-buses and accompanying infrastructure, including the realization of a new depot, will be set up. Bus rapid transit measures, including the required intelligent transportation management system and mobility hubs for the dissipation of shared transportation and other mobility services. And then they needed to take one step at a time. They set boundary conditions, so gradually transition to fully decarbonized fleet. They obviously cannot do it all at once. So they then establishment of new lines, shortening frequency of connections. They considered bus range and financial resources. The next step that they did was integral view. So the energy production of renewable energy sources, cost-benefit analysis, impact to power grid, matching bus lines with its timetables, just in the moment power demand of the buses with their individual state and need of charging with power grid, environmental parameters, and the microeconomic view with its consideration of on the overall costs. The next step after that they did was, look at the technology options for charging. So stationary charging, depot charging, and opportunity charging, fast, slow, with high power, then dynamic charging, for overhead lines, for trolley buses, with catenary option, and then hydrogen fueling as well, with hydrogen buses and hydrogen charging fueling stations, and also with battery and with self-fuel range extenders. But they don't have the infrastructure, so it would raise the costs. And when, after gathering this data, then they did market consultation of all these technology options. So all e-bus drivetrain technology options, all required infrastructure for charging and fueling, and all required peripheral components such as depot, load, and energy management software system. Now they're doing the feasibility analysis and cost assessments of all technology options, and operational, technical, ecological, risk, and city layout assessment, as well as conversion concept. The outcome of the study will be used as a reference for setting up the functional open technology tender. So the tendering has its own requirements, performance specification, and awarding criteria. And at the end, awarding, the basic approach for awarding the contract shall be to compare life cycle assessment costs with discount factors based on criteria like operational flexibility, primary energy consumption, emissions, greenhouse gas noise, and consideration of effects on upstream energy infrastructure. So this, I presented a little bit more in detail, but the second case that comes from Germany, it has the same component. So I'm not going to go into detail. I will just use it to summarize the key points. So you need to, establish a strong consortium with the same focus and idea. And you need to adopt the idea. And the idea here was the same as Klagenfurt, just with the bigger bus fleet with 400 e-buses already in operation and targeting 800 more of them. And then just going one step at a time with the strategy, feasibility, planning, implementation, and the operation. And if you are like me and you sometimes forget, some of the content of the presentation that you hear, you need to remember from this presentation the following. So from the first part, when we compared emitters per capita, each of you us matters for the change. You know, from the second part of this presentation, you know, that addressed the sectors that contribute the most of the greenhouse emissions, it is necessary to make a transition to cleaner power and transport. For the third component of this presentation, you know, the research and the analysis, you need to remember it has been proven electric power from renewable energy sources and decarbonizing transport does make a difference to global warming. And from the case part, the transition is proven to be viable. However, without your help, we will not meet the 7.6% annual reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions. Those who are not yet engaged in this course, please get engaged. And thank you for listening. I wish you a really lovely day and I hope you enjoy the rest of this event. And this is all from my side.
Thank you, Blanka, for this quick but deep overview of the trainings available for urban peri-urban planning. So it's time to go to the next one, policy and governance. It's Mrs. Zaiss who is going to speak about this. I don't know if we are going to have the questions first or not, but you are welcome to share your screen.
Yes, thank you. You should already see the screen.
Yes, that's correct. No.
Okay, super. Yeah, hello and welcome from my side. I will introduce you to the training actions which were collected on a topic of policies and governance. Yeah, but first, as we've heard, I also want you please to take a minute and answer me the following question. In your opinion, which of the following tasks is the most urgent for policymakers in the field of e-mobility? And feel free to click multiple times or multiple choices.
Oh, sorry, I think it's only possible to choose one.
Ah, it's only possible to choose one. Okay, then, then choose one, the one you think is the most urgent one. But I mean, as you may have guessed, there is no wrong answer. All choices are part of the training actions. But let's see, maybe we can have a look at the results already.
I give it a few more seconds.
A few more seconds, okay.
There's still people voting. Okay, then I'm gonna close it and show you the results.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's quite a good fit to my upcoming speech. So we have two questions that are right ahead, answers that are right ahead, the implementation of e-mobility plans and to foster cooperations between public and private. Yeah, that is a good fit. So we can start with the training actions. And first of all, I want to start with a very basic and simple sentence. Mobility is a basic need of society and a basic requirement for the functioning of a market economy. And this sentence already withholds the major challenges of the implementation of new technologies, like, for instance, e-mobility in the local public transport and the last mile logistics. It is the public-private partnerships. Mobility in the e-smart context means, of course, not only mobility, as we know, it's also the transport of goods and people, which are both basic needs of society. And this must be ensured by the public administrations. Additionally, the economy is depending on certain policies, on which they can rely to create functioning economy. So companies also need private-public partnerships to create solid business cases, and they need to rely on the availability of goods, of course. But on the other hand, public administrations themselves need great support by facing issues like, for instance, the digitalization or investments or impact analysis. So from this simple sentence, we can assume that there is therefore a great mutual dependency on each other. So what drives this dependency and what are the reasons for the need to act right now? As we heard in the previous speech from Blanka, thank you again, public authorities and governments need to respond to existing environmental directives. This is especially true for the transport sector, as we learned, which is still responsible for, unfortunately, 25% of all European-wide greenhouse gases. For this reason, a government oriented towards future plans the necessary infrastructure in a forward-looking manner and sets appropriate framework conditions for user-oriented transport systems. And this all must be done taking into account the need of economy and the population, as well as with regard to the environment. The triangle of sustainability, economy, ecology, society needs to be paid equally attention, and long-term impacts have to be considered from the beginning. For example, the energy market, the availability of vehicles, finance methods, subsidies, and of course, funding options. And to meet these needs, the most efficient way, these training methods name the same solution, all of them. Form partnerships, form new corporations, and foster the stakeholder engagement. This leads us, of course, to some questions. For example, how can we improve the private-public partnership? How to implement corporations on all levels? First of all, we have to say that the digitalization represents an important part of promoting e-mobility with great potential for integrating solutions and smart measures. That is why training activities for policies and governance show various possibilities, methods, and instruments for cooperation strategies among different partners. Only named a few here, like the multi-sector stakeholder and the multi-level governance. That is why, and often even really small methods help to stimulate a more interesting conversation than a normal discussion would deliver. Furthermore, interactive methods can help to make stakeholders feel more integrated in the project. So for example, warm-ups, icebreakers, interactive methods, all this you can find detailed in the training methods on policies and governance. And maybe you ask yourself now, what are the benefits of all that? There are multiple benefits for public-private partnerships. We also experienced a lot of them during the 2-year project timeline. For example, you can realize pilot projects. You can learn from each other and understand the needs better, overcome problems. Also, you can create smart and clean transport. And this is also something that everybody can improve their own sustainability goals. For example, like the climate neutrality. Yeah, and thank you very much. This is from my side. I hope I could convince you from the importance of partnerships, and you will maybe try to implement or improve your stakeholder management. So I give it back to Bruno. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. So, last but not least, leaving the floor to Mrs. Federica Savini. She's going to talk about technical issues. Sorry, and yes, please.
Yeah, hi everyone.
It's not.
Can you see my screen? Okay, so
Yes.
That we see. Yeah, okay.
yes. Okay, I'm Federica Savini and I will talk about the technical issue teaching activities, specifically on smart territories and digitalization as the last cluster of teaching activities.
Yeah. Okay.
So to get a smart territory framework, we definitely need many different ingredients. First of all, mobility and energy, and also digitalization, a sense of community, and a supportive policy and governance framework. I will talk about mobility, specifically on freight mobility and green logistics, and I will leave it aside on the topic local public transport. And then I will talk also about digitalization. So let's start with freight mobility and green logistics. The need is, of course, to have the right product or service in the right place at the right time. And this product or service must be taken from point A to B with the best transport mode, but also following the best route and minimizing empty runs in case of products, of course. So there are three possible ways to move goods: ground transport, which is the most immediate, flexible, and used for short and medium distances; ocean transport, which is more economic but slower. Then it is used for non-perishable goods and for large quantities of material. And finally, we have air transport. This is the fastest, but also the most expensive. Therefore, it is used for perishable goods and goods that have high economical value. So I would like to ask you, among these transport modes, which, according to you, has the largest share of European greenhouse gas emissions? Among road transport, maritime, aviation, and railways. These are data from 2016, but the share is almost the same as in the last data, the latest data. Okay, I think we can share the results. Yeah, so, okay. As you guessed, the road transport is the most polluting mode. It accounts for more than 70% of transport emissions among these modes. And specifically, this 70% is made of almost 30% from freight mobility, considering light and heavy duty trucks. The rest, of course, is from passenger cars, mainly. So we said what the need is, then what is the aim for green logistics? Of course, to get both transport and logistics with a low cost, but with the highest quality possible, and getting minimal environmental impacts. So to decrease the environmental impacts, we can think directly to how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. That can be achieved through different options. For example, innovative vehicle technologies such as an efficient engine management system, sustainable biofuels like biodiesel, biogas, biomass, but also, for example, biofuels from algae. Then an improved infrastructure is really important with smart and intelligent systems that can help to reduce traffic congestion and, for example, to help developing intermodality. Then we need consumer information. Users must be aware of all these problems and solutions. And also, for example, drivers can be taken through some eco-driving courses and things.
Sorry,
that
sorry,
help.
Federica. Is it normal that we have only the first slide? For me, it's only the first slide of a screen. Is it normal?
No.
I can see
you
all
can see
slides.
them.
For me, it was fine.
You are following me with the slides, right?
Yes.
Like you can see
Okay,
the
so
list
it's only for me. So sorry. Okay, carry on.
Okay. So last tool to reduce GHG emission in freight mobility, for example, but in transport in general, is to apply some legal instruments that can be positive, like incentives, but also negative, like carbon taxes on high carbon content fuels or products. But let's focus on the last mile logistics. So this is just a bit of the value chain of every process. We go from production at first, of course, then we have transport that happens with one of the modes we have seen before. And then at the very end, we have this last mile, which means the delivery from the hub center or distribution center directly to the customer. So the need is to provide product and services to end users in a dense area, usually the urban area, in the most efficient and fastest way. A possibility to make this greener is to develop electric last mile logistics in municipalities. A survey has been conducted in 2020 to some European municipalities, and we found out that 50% of them stated that e-mobility diffusion is at the top of their agenda. And 100% stated that digitalization is an important part of promoting e-mobility. So there is a tight connection between digitalization and e-mobility. But on the other side, electric last mile logistics charging points are often not available, and planning for their installation is not yet on everyone's agenda. So we definitely need an integrated action of public administrations and private subjects or companies. And to get a smart territory, we need the cooperation of several communities. And the aim is to share innovative models to improve the territory's mobility and energy. For that, we definitely need to collect data. They can be open data or internal data flows already available, but that must be interpreted. Then external data and data that comes from Internet of Things, like sensors or a digital infrastructure in the urban environment. For that, we need a cooperation of companies, public administrations, research centers, and public and private entities that must be provided data, but they can also make use of the data analysis that can be done on the data sets available. So they can be users and providers at the same time. For example, in a urban environment, there will be many different city projects regarding topics like environment, lighting, mobility, tourism, health, and safety. And we can have different data sets. For example, people movement, so the typical origin destination matrix, traffic flows, weather, information, events, consumer patterns, pollution, air quality data, and also people profiles from social media. The private sector is for sure interested in this kind of data sets and can help also to provide information. So the need is clearly data availability, but also the possibility to integrate this kind of data sets. And the aim is to develop applications and strategies based on this information. And for that, to mix all together, we can build platforms. So open and easy platforms that must apply the concept of interoperability. So integrating data, but also making them applicable to different sectors and based on private, shared, or open data. For example, we can see the UCAP Smart Data Platform developed by the Piedmont region, where each user manages its own work area and can operate on all different sources to make analysis and make decisions. So we have seen in terms of mobility the need to develop electric last mile logistics through integration of actions from the public administration and private subjects and companies. And in terms of digitalization, the need to develop applications based on data that can come from open, shared, and private data, but also from the companies, for example, in order to develop platforms. And these are the technical issues, teaching activities I mentioned. You can find them on, you will find them on our website. And I leave the floor to Bruno. If he's there, not sure.
Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me. I have some trouble with Zoom.
We can hear you now.
I have some trouble with Zoom, but I'm trying to solve the issue. In the meantime, thank you, Federica, for this presentation. We have some time now for questions from the audience. So maybe someone else could try and start thing. I have to restart my Zoom and come back to you soon.
Thank you, Bruno. I can manage the question and answer if someone want to raise their hands. Otherwise, I ask you to kindly activate your camera to let us get some picture for reporting purpose. Thank you to all of you. And so if I kindly ask to our communication manager if they can get some picture from you. And in the meanwhile, I want to thank all of you to remain connected so long with us. And I hope that our presenters give you the opportunity to have a quite sight of all the training action that we developed. And I recall you that you can go on the project website and have a look to each of the training action. So please, our project has all the training actions that were presented. Yes, thank you, Bruno, I guess, for sharing your screen. And are you back for the closing speech, or? Bruno, we can't hear you.
Yes, I'm back, and I was just looking for the sound button. Sorry. So we thank you to Krishna. It's already late, so we're not going to speak a lot of time. As you saw, we have a number of training materials on different topics. We talked on energy, about smart grids, about the combination of positive energy districts and electric vehicles, energy communities, citizen energy communities, and the necessity to involve users. And the good news is that all of you are willing to collaborate. That's a good news indeed. We talked about the time to get project to the field, and also We are still in the beginning of electrification of heavy-duty freight vehicles, but it could be a good solution. So that was all for energy. And then for urban planning, we talked about greenhouse gas emissions, about transition for transport, and which energy to choose. We talked about total cost of ownership, and the fact that the gap is reducing. And also we have very interesting information about the steps for decarbonization of bus fleet. And also for urban peri-urban planning, the lesson was please get engaged. And then for policy and governance, we talked about public-private partnership. And guess what? It was about partnership and work together. And then the last one about technical issues. Then we learned about how to decarbonate freight mobility, green logistics. We know that last mile logistics need integrated action of public administration and private companies. So it's always about collaboration, and also for smart territories and digitalizations, we have to work together and to develop platforms. So the main lesson is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. So you can find all the documents, you will be able to find all the documents once they are published on the website, which is listed here. And also, remind you the next steps. We have a training webinar about best practices. Today it was a training webinar about training sessions, and in March we have best practices. It will be also very interesting. We're going to share examples of good practices from all over Alpine space. So please get connected. And also at the end of March, we'll have the last training webinar about the project toolkit. It's a data platform to support policies for e-mobility. So don't hesitate to participate. And on behalf of the whole team, I thank you very much for attending this session. And maybe if Christina allows, we could close the meeting.
Thank you, Bruno, and thank you to the speaker, and thank you to all the participants. See you on the 1st of March. Bye.
Bye.